Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hi, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. It's Wednesday, my favorite day of the week. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing well. I have a great show today. I have author of The Chiron Effect, Healing Our Core Wounds Through Astrology, Empathy, and Self-Forgiveness, Lisa Tahir, and she's going to join me in just a couple of minutes. To my regulars, I want to say thank you so much for being here. If you're joining me for the first time, I want to say welcome. Thank you for joining me today. And just so you know a little bit about me and my show, I usually, about 99.9% of the time, I have a guest with me. I love having guests and having these conversations. And if you're interested and you like today's show and you go on any of your favorite podcasting platforms, or you can go to Om Times Radio in the archives or postcardstotheuniverse.com, my website, and under podcast, you'll see all my shows, all my guests, and a little information about each show and who I have on. So I hope that you keep coming back, and it means the world to me. I'm also an author myself. I have a book titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And I have people create manifesting postcards, kind of like a vision board, but on a postcard. They send me their postcard, I photograph it, I take my time, I set the space, I photograph it, and I share their story, obviously with their permission, if when their affirmation shows up and their manifestation shows up in their reality, and I share their story. And in my book, there's 30 of those stories, so you can check that out if you're interested. It's so much fun to get them. I love getting them. And if you want to make a manifesting postcard, I tell you how to do it on postcardstotheuniverse.com, how to set the space, what you'll need, the address to send it. And of course, just reach out to me if you have any questions. I love getting them. I love having people create them. They're a lot of fun to do. So just let me know if you have any questions. And I just want to share with everybody, I started doing a bunch of short videos that I'm posting on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And they're like 3 to 4 minute videos. They're on a variety of topics. It's always inspirational. I purposely keep them short. And I'm just trying to put out as much positivity as I possibly can right now. So I would love it if you would go over to YouTube. Everything that I have is under Postcards to the Universe, so you can find me on all of the platforms if you do that. But going over and liking and commenting and following and just sharing more positivity. We need to flood the universe and our planet with as much positivity as we can. All right, so let me get to my guest. I'm excited to talk to her today. Lisa Tahir is a licensed clinical social worker, certified in EMDR Level 1 Reiki, Level 2, and she's a thought coach through the Institute for Transformational Thinking. She has her own podcast that she hosts called All Things Therapy Podcast, and she authored, which we're going to talk a lot from today, The Chiron Effect, Healing Our Core Wounds Through Astrology, Empathy, and Self-Forgiveness, which was endorsed by the Dalai Lama. So the Chiron Effect is a concept developed by Lisa that describes how individuals are drawn to areas of personal wounding. She explains that people often orbit around specific core issues and themes. She uses the astrological placement of the minor planet Chiron in a birth chart as a diagnostic tool to identify these core wounds and unconscious patterns. Understanding this can help individuals develop self-empathy and practice self-forgiveness. She emphasizes that an orbit represents a habitual pattern, and changing this orbit can change an individual's frequency. In essence, by altering established patterns, people can achieve different results in their lives. You can find out more about everything that she's doing if you go to her website. It's nolatherapy.com. I'm going to spell it NOLATHERAPY.com. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Wow, Melissa, thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm so happy to be with you and our audience. And you're just a powerhouse. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. So are you. And
You're welcome.
I
Thank
know
you.
I'm learning a little bit more of over this past year about astrology. And I have learned, and I had to relook it up just to confirm, because when I sent Lisa an email, I'm like, I found that my Chiron is in Aries at 6 degrees in the ninth house. So when we get into it, Lisa can use me as a little bit of a you know, you can use me to talk about what that means. But let's talk about, first of all, let's all right, talk about your background, how you, a little bit about how you got into this work, and what inspired you to write the book, and tell people who and what is Chiron, because most people know what their sun sign is, right? And that's
Yes.
basically where our knowledge stops. A lot of people don't understand their rising, their moon, and all the other signs in the houses and all that, which is a real detailed version of who you are.
Yes.
So, okay, so how did you get into this kind of work?
I entered therapy as a client when I was just 21 years old. I knew that I needed to heal some patterns and experiences I had gone through as a younger person. And when I sat in therapy with my therapist, whose name was Marilyn, I just knew this is what I want to do with my life, is listen to others and offer perspectives and paradigms and a safe place for them to really be their authentic selves, and to help people work through maybe some of the experiences you went through caused you to create some faulty beliefs that keep you back from the life you really want, because you were wounded and hurt, and you're not believing as fully in yourself as you can be, by healing the parts of you that were wounded and hurt, and embracing by taking some new steps and trying some new things in your life. And I've been a therapist for over 25 years now. The work around Chiron, Melissa, came into my life about 10 years ago when I was meditating and asking the universe, okay, universe, why do I have so many successful clients that are still feeling anxious and depressed? And why am I still experiencing anxiety and depression when I've been in therapy, actively working on myself? Like, what is going on? And like, because your processes are about this, the universe starts shining light, sending you things to take note of. And all that I heard, Melissa, was a gentle word spoken, Chiron, Chiron. And my only reference for Chiron was back in graduate school in the 90s, getting my social work master's degree, is Carl Jung's archetypes, the wounded healer, Chiron. I wasn't too excited, but I've learned enough to know that when the universe wants you to explore something, it'll come up quietly at first, and it can get louder and louder if we don't listen. And so I just surrendered. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a deep dive on Chiron. And I learned, among other things, it's a minor planet and comet designated in astronomy in our solar system, orbiting between the planets of Saturn and Uranus right now. Chiron was also the Greek mythological healer in mythology. And when you go to the doctor and you see the staff of medicine everywhere in medical places, Chiron gave that to Asclepius. Chiron was a teacher about therapy and medicine and healing. And he really embodied animal instincts with the balance of human consciousness and self awareness. So, Chiron in astrology is a placement in our birth chart. Like you said, our sun sign, our moon sign. It's not as often talked about, but it's really important, because this is how you might kind of be unkind to yourself in your thoughts. And the belief is that you think you're doing better and going to get better by being hard and critical with yourself, but you don't. It creates often shame cycles, and you tend to kind of flinch away and move away from those parts of yourself rather than lovingly embrace that part of you that needs to learn maybe some skills on how to show up for himself or themselves, like to really orbit the frequency, the daily routines, our patterns of people, places, and things that we desire. How does that land with you?
No, I mean, now it makes sense because I'm thinking, why would Chiron be the wound? Like we're talking about our Chiron wound and our core wounds, but then when you said Chiron was the healer and it shows up in the medical chart, it makes sense, right? Like that we need to look
Yeah.
inside ourselves and find out where our wound is that we can heal whatever our wound is. So how does Chiron, obviously it's wherever Chiron was in the sky, in the stars when you were born, is your wound in your astrological sign of your birth or natal chart, correct?
Yes, and I'm just going to add to our conversation. Wounding is on a spectrum. For some
Sure.
people, this is just like an ouch. You know, on the
Yeah.
extreme on one end, it's like just an ouch. Like you really are well adjusted. You've had a great supportive upbringing. So for some of you, this is just like a little ouch every now and then. You probably don't notice it. But for other people on the other end of the spectrum and all along the middle, there are experiences that some of us have had that left us really doubting ourselves and questioning our own value and worth. And we might then end up in relationships that are abusive or just aren't satisfying because we believe we need to work really hard to be loved, for example, or we might neglect our health routines. And so, Chiron shows up along that spectrum from an ouch all the way up to and including core wounding. It depends on your own life experience.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, everything basically is on a spectrum, right? And we're also
Yeah.
individual. And that's the interesting thing about astrology is that's why when some people say, "Oh, you don't," I'm a Gemini. So some people say, "Oh, you don't seem like a Gemini." Well, I have a lot of Leo in my chart. I have a lot of fire and
Mm,
I have a lot of earth. I have a lot of Virgo and Taurus in my chart. So it makes
yes.
sense to be why I may be completely different than my mother. We have 3 days apart in our birthday, who's also a Gemini. She's more traditionally Gemini that you read from the sun sign, but maybe this will help. So let's talk about my Chiron, which is in Aries, and
Yeah.
so maybe so people can kind of grasp, well, what do they really mean? So what does what could a wound look like for me as a person and a Chiron in Aries at 6 degrees? I'm still trying to understand how degrees work, but it's also in the ninth house, and you could tell people what the ninth house is and all that good stuff. I'll let you share whatever you feel like telling. You can say whatever comes at it, whatever thought comes in your mind. It's fine.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa. And just
Okay.
just to be clear, I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I'm not an astrologer, so I take your Chiron placement and I move it into the realm of psychological,
Okay.
spiritual, and emotional healing. I have in the
Okay.
back of my book astrologers that if you want to know more about the degrees and such, you're
Okay.
welcome to reach out to them or anyone
Perfect.
else. But
Okay.
yeah, I want to help people understand this like practically, where the rubber meets the road, what it means
Got it.
for Chiron, like for instance, in the sign of Aries that you mentioned for yourself, Melissa. And I also sense intuitively that you have been healing this placement through everything that you were doing. It
Mm-hmm.
is probably now more of an occasional ouch than any kind of deep wounding or like not valuing yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
this looks like a person who believes that they have to work hard to
Mm-hmm.
receive love. They tend to be really hard on themselves. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard for this person to kind of let themselves rest. They're on to a next achievement, not from like an ego driven place, but from this real need to want to fill something inside that hasn't felt quite good enough. And
Mm-hmm.
this person actually has a really well formed identity, but you judge your identity to be weak. And that's kind of the pain point where you achieve
Mm-hmm.
and do wonderful things so that hopefully one day you're going to feel like it's enough. And people think you're awesome. Like you're so successful and prolific, yet there's this little part of you inside that's like, oh my gosh, like, but I don't feel good enough. And it
Mm-hmm.
can be really exhausting mentally, physically, spiritually to feel like it's just never enough. It could cause you to feel some depression, isolation, and unworthiness, and even
Mm-hmm.
confusion sometime about how to move forward. And so, is any of this resonating? Was this ever true for you?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, the hard on yourself is so me, and that's something I've been working on for especially the last 10 years. But even my mother pointed out to me at one point in my life when I was going through a difficult time, she's like, I've never met anybody who's as hard on their self as you are on
Hmm.
yourself. You know, and I thought like, yeah, why
Yeah.
am I so hard on myself? Because I have been super lucky in growing up in a very loving, great environment. I mean, we all have our craziness in our family, right? But overall, compared to some what other people have gone through, I've been lucky in that department. But yeah, I've been super hard on myself, and unworthiness has always been an underlining current. I would think until the last, I would say, 10 years that I've done deep healing work and worked on that and shifted that story, that unworthiness story. Yeah.
Yes, I feel like you have. And also, usually and I sense you could even be a highly sensitive person or empath, that
Mhm.
it's easy for
Yep.
you to tune in to the needs of others, but maybe
Yes.
you've neglected your own needs and
Oh,
prioritized others'
definitely.
needs. Has that been
Definitely.
true?
Oh, God, definitely. Yep. 150%. Yes, absolutely.
So
Oh,
the
that's
key in healing
fascinating.
is to be giving yourself messages of empathy and tenderness and really tuning
Mhm.
into your needs and actually doing a hell of a lot less and doing a lot more to restore and replenish yourself and
Mhm.
taking time out for you just as much as you enjoy taking out for others. Is that something that you've been practicing?
Yes, yes, I have been. And one of the ways that I've started doing this, and I've talked about this in other shows, is I started a meditation routine within the last year that is like non negotiable. In the morning, my phone is off. That's the first thing I do when I get up. And I started shutting my phone off a lot when I'm busy and I'm doing
Yes,
things, or just I need quiet. I just need quiet just so that I can feel
I do the
grounded
same
or
thing.
whatever. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I don't feel
It's
guilty
so good.
anymore like I used to,
I love
which
that,
is
Melissa.
great.
And also, you have a deep need, like something that drives your life in an exciting way is to
Mhm.
contribute and be seen and really like
Mhm.
bring ideas and thoughts to people. So it's like that's
Yeah.
why the performance is authentic, but it's learning how to do it in a way that you're really feeling connected, that you're loving yourself for contributing. You're really feeling proud, like you take time
Mhm.
out to celebrate what you're doing, like in your show, your notes to the universe, like all of
Mhm.
this, that you're really just, um, really praising yourself. Is that something that you've been
Yeah.
working on too?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Definitely. And I've been working on that's why I love having people like you on the show and other people who have also done the work, because I think by just having us have our conversation, we're showing other people it's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to take care of yourself, because when you take care of yourself, you can take care of everybody else because your cup is full. You have enough
Right.
to take care of your family and your friends or your environment or nature, mother nature, the earth, whatever your work is, right? Doesn't matter. But we need to fill our own cup, and we've always been taught, like, because people who come across as having love themselves or self-confidence, it's not in an ego way, it's not in a I'm a better than you way, it's a
Right. Not at
and
all.
I think no, and we're changing that by having these conversations. So I'm curious, Lisa, where's your Chiron, and what sign is
It
yours in?
my Mine is also an Aries, so I really know everything we're
Oh,
speaking about
interesting.
really well, and it's helped me to grow as a person and become happier to know, like, if I didn't achieve another thing, I'm totally good enough. And like to
Mhm.
achieve the real delights and taking time off in between goals to just smell the roses. Literally, I'll walk down the street and smell flowers and like take time with family and friends and really enjoy myself and fill my tank, as you mentioned. And from that place, I'm able to really intuit to go left, right, pause with more clarity and with less depletion emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's what we all need to do. So for anybody who's listening, you can, just so you know, you can look up where your Chiron is. You can go on Google and you can look that up too if you want to find out where it is. But can people really begin to heal their core wounds? Is that a possibility? Because some people,
Absolutely.
I don't think
And I
some
think
people
this,
realize that it's possible for them. Because maybe they did do
well,
traditional therapy, like you said, and they were still feeling depressed or not good enough, you know?
yeah. And, I do traditional therapy. I weave in different principles and paradigms to be holistic. And, I think people might not know that you can heal. I believe you can heal to a fullest degree of the moment, and then life unfolds, and something might remind you of someone. A person passes away, and you reflect on the others you've known that have passed away, and you experience sadness, which is healthy. That kind of grief is healthy, to allow ourselves to move through a loss with more grace, with more patience, with maybe even taking some time off to really be with our feelings. So we heal to the degree that we can in a given moment. And as life unfolds, we might revisit certain wounds that are now, they're not wounds. They might be like a little, ooh, like I remember when that used to take me out, but now it might just be for a couple of hours. I'm in some feelings and I transition out more quickly. So I think don't be afraid of like this whole healing to completion or not. Like we are wired to heal. And so life is here to support us in healing. And you can support yourself by softening the messages you're speaking to yourself and by applying self forgiveness, which my book talks
Mm-hmm.
about, to allow yourself some grace and take some time to learn what you need to learn to show up differently, to achieve who you really want to be and what you really want.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful because I think self-forgiveness is so important. So I want to talk about, because you talk about this in your book about and you call it an orbit, and how we orbit our lives with the same things, like the same people, the places, the things, habits. So talk about how we do that and how we can change the orbit, kind of like thinking of it as like the way Chiron orbits, the like the
Sure.
astrological signs orbit, because we do that. We have the same things orbit around us, and sometimes that keeps us stuck in that negative vortex.
And at the same time, hopefully, your habits and routines are things, people, places, and things you love. So
Mhm.
ideally, you have your habits. And I just love language. So to me, orbit, we are like little planets and we live in our own
Mhm.
solar system. So we habituate our family, our friends, our work, our gym, our grocery, like all those aspects of our lives. And ideally, we really love most of those patterns and people and things. Yet there might be an area that can be sourced back to where Chiron is, where like you're not connected to the good life you have. And I think this can happen with the Chiron and Aries person. You have a really good life, but because you're self deprecating and being way too hard on yourself, it robs you of connecting to the joy that your life is giving you every day. So it's really by quieting the critic and changing him, her, them into an encouraging and loving voice, so you can acknowledge and appreciate all the awesome things in your life and change maybe the little bit that needs to be tweaked in an area that you might not be as satisfied in. And it helps you do that with more ease, looking through this lens of Chiron.
Hmm. So that's interesting. So if somebody's listening right now and says, I'm not loving my let's just use a social life, like their friends, everybody wants to go out and all they want to do is drink, or maybe even more, do drugs, and they're not interested in that, and they want to shift some things and change around, but they don't know like how to do it, because that's what they've always done. That's what their whole life has been for the last 20 years, hanging out with the same group of people, talking, and being in this kind of environment. How does one start to change their orbit without it just like pulling the rug out from under them? You know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm trying to
Yeah.
ask? Like in a simple, like in a step by step kind of way.
Well, I do, and it sounds, and everyone's different. In this personality type, where it sounds like your life used to be centered more around drinking and possibly drugs,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like you've really had a change in your perspective and in your values. So I would suggest, if you're not already in some type of recovery community, maybe that's something to try out.
Mm-hmm.
Go. I love meetup.com to try
Yeah,
out
I do
different
too.
groups.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
you might
too.
want to go try a new group. Go to a church in your neighborhood. Maybe a friend has crossed your mind from the past that you haven't talked to in a while. Reach out to them, that person that you've been thinking of, and be like, hey, I know we haven't talked in years. Would you like to grab a coffee? And share with the people, even in your life, hey, I really feel like I'm changing here. I don't necessarily want to go and do these things. Would any of y'all want to do something different, like go to a museum? And maybe some of the people already in your life are contemplating a similar change, but don't know that you're there too. So it's really communicating your need and asking, before you just abandon and pull up your anchor and go, maybe some people you already know would love to join you in a space doing different things. And so you might be able to make that shift and, not have to radically change everything so much by speaking your truth.
Speaking your truth. And what you're going to find is you may be pleasantly surprised, because you may find that other people are also feeling similar to you, right?
Yes.
And they've just grown out of that, and they don't know what to do either. And then you also have to take into consideration, and I've learned this myself, is when you do make some big changes and you change your vibration and you sort of raise your energy and your vibration, some people who are not in that same energetic match will fall away naturally. It just kind of falls away. And it doesn't mean forever. It just could be for a brief period of time with that. And you have to be okay with that. And other people will come in. Thank you for saying that. Other people will come in, which has happened. And
if you're not okay with it, that's a change. Again, we're humans. We're thinking up to 70, 80,000 thoughts a day and all the associated emotions connected to those thoughts. It's normal to feel lost and sad. If, friends that you once loved and cherished kind of move away from you, let yourself have those feelings. Go through it. Don't, put a Band-Aid over it and tell yourself it's not okay to feel sad. Of course, feel that authentically. I think being authentic is really the key, and doing journaling, reaching out to somebody that you can talk to about this, a loved one or a therapist, to help you move through these changes that sometimes our lives go through.
Yeah, we could all use community in any way you can find it. All right, let's take our break here, Lisa. And I just looked at the clock, and we'll come back in just a couple minutes and continue our conversation. Okay. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I have Lisa Tahir with me, and she is the author of The Chiron Effect, Healing Our Core Wounds Through Astrology, Empathy, and Self-Forgiveness. So, Lisa, I was thinking during the break, you said you've been a therapist for, did you say like 25 years or something like that? So you have a lot of experience. Yeah. So why do you think, in your professional opinion, that we have such a hard time collectively, and this is from my experience and just talking to other people and authors and people that I've met, on self-forgiveness? Why do we have such a hard time forgiving ourselves?
Well, I think we're not taught to, Melissa. When I look back on the term forgiveness and what it means, I was always taught to forgive others. I don't remember anyone ever saying to me, like, forgiveness first and foremost is for you. Like, for you to maybe do an inventory at the end of your day and reflect on things that really delighted you, and as well, what happened that maybe you didn't feel so good about. Did you have any contribution to it? And how would you like to show up differently later and make peace with the day? Forgive the day. Like, really do that, if not daily, weekly, monthly, at your birthday, looking back over the year, to just periodically self-reflect and notice if you said or did something you're not proud of, what you really needed and didn't have in that moment. Because I think most people are trying the best that they can. Often we might be overwhelmed, stressed, frustrated, and we respond from those really extreme emotions and don't mean to, yet consistently doing that can erode your relationship. So what do I need to do to really deal with my frustration, stress, anger, or sense of being overwhelmed so that I can respond instead of react? I talk about in my book a section on responding versus being reactive. It's two different energies that you're initiating from.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you brought that up, because
thank you.
Because I notice, and we're all guilty of it, or we have been at some point, you're talking about responding rather than reacting, that a lot of times somebody does something in the heat of the moment, or says something or does something hurtful. A lot of us defend our behavior by saying, well, it was because you blah, 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 whatever dot, dot, dot is, right? I did that because I'm frustrated, or I was hurt, or and we're not taking accountability for ourselves and our own behavior. And I think that's true, that we never were taught to do that. We weren't taught for self-forgiveness, or we weren't taught to take responsibility for our own behavior. We're always deflecting, right? Oh, it's your fault. I did this because of you.
I think that some people, Melissa, the others are
sure, of course,
responsibility, too much responsibility. You're feeling like everything's your fault when it's not. Instead of maybe holding someone else accountable and saying, hey, you've crossed my boundaries. Like, I don't like this. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's
true. Some people
true.
might be taking too much crap and allowing people to push them around because they're afraid of conflict or conflict avoidance, which can be challenging. If you grew up with conflict, you might not want to be around that. Yet sometimes we do need to set a boundary or say, hey, not today, maybe next week, or in a way assert what we need to happen and kind of push against an idea or a person.
Yeah, that's why going to therapy is always a good idea. I think everybody should have therapy, whether you think you need it or not. Therapy, coaching, some kind of working with somebody else who has experience that can help you navigate.
Development and growth.
Yes. I think everybody should. Yeah, I don't think you need a problem to go to see a therapist. I really don't. I think it's good. We're here to grow, right? We're here to learn. So working with other people is the best way to do it. So when I was going through your bio and I was looking at some of the things, this is the first time I've ever heard this word, psychoastrology. Am I saying it right? Psychoastrology?
Yeah.
What is it? What is psychoastrology, and how do we use it?
Well, like I said earlier, I love language. Language really
Mm-hmm.
opens doors for us, or it can close doors for us. Our spoken word is really important, as are the thoughts we're thinking about ourselves. And since I love
Sure.
language, I just thought it was fun to invent a word and have it trademarked that reflects where our personal psychology meets our natal astrology, and that's what psychoastrology is. Just a
I,
simple, term to demarcate that intersection in our lives. And Melissa, one of the downloads I had a few years ago that was just like
mm-hmm.
mind blowing, and I want to ask you how you feel about it. I would struggle in astrology around a birth chart being dictated to me, like I'm this way because of stars in the sky. Like I'm not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I had this download. Oh my gosh, I wrote my birth chart, and so did you. That we
Mm-hmm.
chose these propensities, personality traits,
Yeah.
things that we wanted to try out and experience. And now that we're here on Earth, we can have awareness of those propensities and such, but we can also change them. So our free will and our ability to gain knowledge and skills to have different outcomes. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing's dictated to us. We're actually the author of it. And I wonder
Right.
how that lands with you.
Well, I feel the same way because I do it in the sense of I use manifesting a lot, like we're co-creating with the universe. And I really got that same kind of download and I think it came from seeing a lot of trauma in the sense, like I would always say, why would a god or whatever you want to call it, the universe, allow such horrible things to happen, right? Especially when we see it happening to innocent children and animals until it's somewhere it registered in me. Well, the soul chose its own experience for a lesson and for a reason. And then like a ding ding went off and that said, well, then that makes sense because if you come here to have a certain experience and let's say you signed up to learn certain lessons, you may have to go through some serious traumatic events to get that growth because that's your soul's growth. And so yes. And so the long answer is yes. It resonates with me now that just because it says that I'm supposed to be this, this, and this. I chose to have certain experiences. I chose to have this personality to come through at this time when the astrology was here. But that doesn't mean I'm bound by those choices. I do have free will to direct my life in the way that I want it to go. So does that answer your question in the long way?
We do. And I would add to that in my paradigm and
Mm-hmm.
experience, God doesn't allow bad things. People do. We're the gatekeepers.
Yes.
It's up to us
Right.
to stop the things from
Right.
happening. And it's up
Right.
to us to set the limits and bring justice. And, get off
Absolutely.
your ass and do something if you're really dissatisfied. Like, that's what
Absolutely.
we get to do here, being human on Earth during this
Right.
time.
Right. And sometimes the catalyst may be a very traumatic thing happened to you and then you had that experience because you were meant to now be a healer to help other people, right? But the only way you could do that was to have that whatever that experience was for you. There's like it's so much deeper and richer than I think we can even imagine. And it did
Yeah.
always kind of bother me when people would say, "Well, you don't seem like a traditional Gemini, you're not so like back and forth or so airy and flaky, like you're very grounded or you're this or that." And I'm thinking, well, now I understand why, because I'm looking at all the other aspects of my chart, and my upbringing and what I learned. And so we have to be more critical thinking in our own life and in our own experiences, I think.
And I would say too, being self-reflective. I think
Yes.
having self-awareness and being self-reflective, and then taking different actions, trying new things out, softening or leaning in, like really being self-aware. I think it helps us intuit life, so we learn through more loving and gracious and wonderful experiences rather than hard ones, because we're really listening and tuned in to ourselves and to source, to unconditional love, to the universe, whatever language that you use to describe the greater connection.
Right, whatever language that you use. So how long did it take you to decide to do your book? did you just one day decide like, oh, you know what? I think I should write a book about this? Because being an author myself, I know it doesn't always, like I remember thinking, oh, I should do a book. And then me thinking to myself, well, what made me think of doing a book? I'm a visual artist, right? Like what made me decide to do a book? So I'm just curious, like what sparked the idea for you to do the book and how long did it take you to do it?
Melissa, for years, I've wanted to write a book, and I still have some old notepads with ideas. Nothing
Oh, that's
stuck.
great.
And yeah, and somehow with this Chiron thing, like I felt like this was something that wanted to come through me, and it felt like this very deep responsibility as well as a desire, like that this information can come through me. And it took me 3 years to write and research. Yeah. I consistently, weekly, would set aside time. I would tell family and friends I have clients till say 8 p.m. There were no clients. It was my writing time. But it was the only way that I could like make that time that important to me, as if it were a client coming in, that I would show up for my writing, because to write a book, I had to show up and sit down at the computer and research. So I told people for 3 years, I had all these clients I didn't have, so that I would take the time seriously, because otherwise people are like, oh, come for dinner, come do this. And it's like, okay, like, I'll do it next week. And the book never gets done. So I had to really find a way to show up for the writing, for the research, for the editing. And I felt like this was something being burst through me. Like it was like this, I felt this real sense of responsibility and calling. And I'm so glad that I listened.
Yeah, me too. And you did have a very important client yourself. The most important client was you. You had to take the time for yourself. So I'm not surprised.
Oh, totally, Melissa.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. So now, and then you have a podcast also, All Things Therapy. Do you have guests on your podcast and you have conversations, or what does your podcast look like in case anybody is interested in checking it out?
Thank you, Melissa. I started 9 years ago with only having guests, and now I do a lot of solo episodes, because it was something that kind of scared me to sit down and spend 15, 25 minutes talking without a guest. So I wanted to challenge myself to pick a topic that I thought could be interesting and sketch out some notes, some information. So I'm still challenging myself to do solo shows. And it's about healing the Chiron and Aries too, my value and worth, that I can add value and worth to people's lives, just me, myself, on an episode, rather than always having to have a guest. So it's helping to heal my confidence and self-esteem, and really valuing what I have to offer, and wanting to connect with people by sharing some more about myself, so that they can really relate to me and see themselves too in this work and in me.
Yeah, and I imagine that it's very healing based from the title, All Things Therapy, that there's a very therapeutic component to the podcast from the title. Am I correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think All Things Therapy pertains to all the aspects of our lives. Every part of being human, I think, has a therapeutic value to us, be it our finances, our physical health, our diet and nutrition, romance and love, friendship, all of it, art, creativity, like this really makes up the rich tapestry of our lives. So I love exploring all of those areas. On my show.
Me too. That's why I like doing it in more of a conversation format, because how fast my brain goes and the constant conversations I'm always having with myself, I love to be bouncing off other people, like that.
Do you ever do solo shows, Melissa?
I did a couple of solo shows, but no, not really. The videos I'm doing now are short videos. They're solo and they're short. I could do a solo show. I just prefer.
How do you feel doing the videos? How do you feel?
Oh, I feel good. I feel good. It took me a little bit, because I'll get critical more about, what I'm wearing, my hair, the way I look, which is part of the self-worth work that I've been doing a long time. And I have to remind myself that's not what you're about. That's not what it's about. It's about what you're talking about. And the more I'm doing it, the more comfortable I'm getting about doing it. But as far as, because the show is an hour, I'm such a conversation person, and I love seeing where conversations go, and I love learning what other people are doing, because it feeds
Right.
my mind that is in constant, which is totally a Gemini thing, constant need for new information. I'm like an information junkie. I need more
Yeah.
new information. That's probably why I go through like a book a week, because I'm constantly, like I need the stimulation. So having these kind of conversations maybe spark something in me, maybe create a new thought, maybe it'll take me in a different direction. And I love doing it. And then I also love sharing what other people are doing with the world. So it feeds both of those things. That's why I prefer to have guests on my show. But I love that you're doing both. That's great.
And I would love for you specifically to love on yourself so much more around whatever your appearance is, to really, really value and like love your appearance more and be grateful for it. As I look back on photos, I had no idea how beautiful I was.
I know.
And now
Me too.
getting older, I'm like,
Me
okay,
too.
I'm gonna accept my beauty, because every picture I see from the past, I'm looking so good, and I didn't let myself feel that way. In time moving on, to really value your beauty. For anyone listening right now, it's so important, as women especially, to value your beauty right now, without the needling yourself or being like, oh, but this is out of place or that. To just have some full radical acceptance and let yourself feel that peace. Your central nervous system is going to relax. Your cells are going to realign. Your body and face are going to show that if you allow it.
True. So true. So true. And especially as women, I mean, maybe men do this too, but just I know from all my girlfriends and conversations we've had, and I look at pictures when I was younger and I'm thinking, what was I thinking? Right? Like, yeah, it's crazy that we do that. And I know society has a lot to do with it. I look at my niece now who's 15, and I remember before she became self-aware of her looks, how much freer she was than she is now, because I watch her put on her makeup and everything has to be perfect. And she's gorgeous. Of course, she's gorgeous. Yeah. And I tell her all the time, but she has to see herself that way. And her mother, my sister, and I are always reminding her, and my mother and my grandmother, but it is a learning thing. And she's going off of her peers, right? All these girls, these teenage girls are like that, as we were too, especially as teenage girls, right? Yeah. But I'm glad that you said that. But I want to ask you this question before I forget, when we were going back to the Chiron core wounds and finding your Chiron core wounds. So how does one start to find it and then heal it? Should be the broad question. And you can answer that anyway, that you feel would help us understand.
Sure. I noticed earlier in the show that you had shared with people they can go to Google to find their Chiron, an easier place, because when I did that, it took a lot of digging. So I have a free interactive website where you can put in your date of birth, your place of birth, your time of birth if you have it, and it just pops up, boom, Chiron is in, and it gives it to you. It's just the same, nolatherapy.com/Chiron, CHIRON, and you'll be able to find it. And then in my book, I talk about, depending on where Chiron is, if it's in Aries or Taurus or Capricorn or Libra, I give some practical takeaway steps, 5 or 6 steps that you can start today to try some new things, to shift these thought patterns that have created beliefs you have around this Chiron wounding or vulnerability, and to start healing yourself, as well as some mantras, affirmations, whatever word you prefer, to start really embracing and noticing if the affirmations resonate with you or if you feel a lot of resistance to them, which means you just need to love yourself a little more into believing these statements of truth about yourself.
Yeah. I work a lot and talk about affirmations a lot, and they're on the postcards. And you start with an affirmation that feels comfortable. You don't have to.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't, if you're working on worthiness, you don't have to say to yourself, I love myself completely. I'm the best person, in the world. I'm just using that as an example. If you feel like that's way too far out there, you can start with something you're good at, something you feel proud of, a character that you feel proud of about yourself. You can start small and you work yourself up. It's that kind of thing. I love that.
And
Oh, okay. I'm so glad that people can go to your website and find it. Okay, to do that, go there. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
And I would say, like, in alignment with what you're saying, to find a bridging statement to say the big affirmation, I am good enough, as an example. It might be, hey, I want to know that I'm good enough. I want to feel more valuable. I want to be more kind to myself. Something that you can really get behind, and you feel it in your body, like, ooh, yeah, like that would be really great. Like, that I'm allowed to have abundance, that I'm, there is abundance for me. Like, show me, like, really bridge yourself, as I heard you say, to the affirmation, and like walk across that bridge as it manifests under your feet and in your life and in your relationships to the next step.
I like that. Yeah, walk across that
Thank
bridge.
you.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Now, you talk
Thank
about
you.
a little bit about core wounds, because we have core wounds, or the Chiron's core wound in each of us. Or what about in a city or a country? Now, I know each country has its own astrological chart, so I imagine that certain cities or countries have a placement of Chiron also in their chart.
Yeah, they all do, which can be fun, which can be really fun to play with. Or in your own life, take your business, the day that you created your LLC, on the document, and put it in my interactive website and see the Chiron placement of your business. It might help you.
I'm going to do that.
Going on.
I'm going to do that when with postcards. I'm going to do that. I'm curious now.
Awesome.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Or the day you got married. It could be the date of your marriage, or your first date, to see kind of the Chiron placement of your relationship. It might center upon the things that there's been disagreement, and it could help you both come into more agreement and to support each other around this vulnerability instead of fighting about it so much.
Right. And also, we don't want to say that wherever your Chiron is a bad thing, right? Like if you do look it up and like you don't want to say like, oh, the date I got married, my Chiron was here, and that means, because then we give it a story, and we can have a negative reaction to it. So we don't want to do that. You just want to show where there may be some challenges. Like, what would be a good thing to use for something like that?
Well, if you think about it, you've already given your relationship a story. It's the thought you're thinking about your partner, your relationship every day. So I don't think there's a danger of that. I think knowing the Chiron placement can help you both support each other. This is where we feel vulnerability, and vulnerability deserves kindness. It deserves love. It deserves to be held very gently and tenderly. And you can start to do that when you find out what this placement is, instead of being critical of each other or disappointed or angry. It can help you show up, and your partner show up differently for you. It can actually be very exciting.
Yeah. No, the word is vulnerability. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Where you can find out where there's a vulnerability. And we all have vulnerability. So I like that. So Lisa, I know we only have a couple minutes. Is there anything that you want to share, or can people reach out to you? Do you do one-on-one sessions? Are you taking new clients? Okay. So tell us about that before we wrap up.
If anybody reaches out to me, my email is lisa@nodlawtherapy.com. Through my website, you can email me or book an appointment and send me a message, mention your show, Melissa, and I'd love to give a new client half off a first session by phone or Zoom. So it'd be $90 instead of $190 to just come in and see, what working with me could be like. And I'd love to gift that to your community. And I really appreciate the show today. You're just a wonderful interviewer and a beautiful, bright soul.
Oh, thank you. So guys, if anybody's looking to maybe start doing some inner work and they want to work with somebody, check her out. And Lisa, just so you know, I'll have your website on the description on the podcast. So that'll go up everywhere. So people can go right to your website and they can reach out to you if they want to work with you. And of course, where can people get your book? On Amazon, anywhere?
It's on Amazon. It's at Walmart.com, I've discovered. You can also go to your local brick and mortar bookstore, and you can bring my title in, and they can pull it up and order it to your local bookstore, because I love supporting our local booksellers, as well as the bigger ones, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all those places. You're able to get it. And I'm also the narrator of the audio book, so it's my voice reading you my book, if you prefer that way.
Oh, you did your own audiobook. That's funny, because Postcards doesn't have an audiobook because there's so much visual component, but now that Audible, you can do like a PDF. So somebody was saying to me, would you want to do your own book reading? And I said, to me personally, I said, no, I would rather have somebody else read my book. But that's great. I love that you did that, that you read your own book. That's great. Yeah. Well, it was such a pleasure, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And guys, reach out to her. Thank you. And we'll be in touch soon. All right, everybody. It was such a great show today. Thanks for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.